The Kingdom Business Society Podcast. Kingdom BS. With Steve Holmstrom. Talking God, wealth creation, business, faith, money, and saving the world.
Carla Prado, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, they say that the devil wears Prada.
I'm the knockoff version.
You've never heard that joke before, I'm sure, though.
Oh, I have several times.
Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
It's good to see you again.
Yes, I
It's
know.
like 7 years since we saw you.
Is it doctor?
Just call me Carla. It's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
But it is doctor.
For my students.
Oh, yeah, for your students.
Wow,
How many
okay.
students do you have?
Well, I have several undergrad students. I teach a large class, but working closely with me on a daily basis is around anywhere between 15 to 20 people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, in your lab.
In my lab. Yeah, it's around 18 now.
And they just do whatever you tell them to do.
Well, I wish they tell me what to do. But yeah, it's really like everything, all the reflection of my academic successes is truly a teamwork. They recruit patients, conduct the research, write the paper. So it's intense. Yeah. So I have undergrad students, graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, research assistants, research coordinators, and even visiting professors.
And they're working together all the time, like a full-time.
Full-time.
All right. So before we go too far in there, I want to kind of read your bio, and I have to read this because I'll never remember everything. And full disclosure, after I asked you to be on the podcast and you said yes, I already knew that you were a scientist and a professor, and I knew that you had some pretty big awards. And so I thought, how cool. You know, you're my first scientist, okay? We've met with a few business people, and we're going to be interviewing lots of business people, lots of people in the marketplace. But looking at, last session was with a counselor who's really just gifted at really helping people unlock issues in their life and finding keys for breakthrough. But you're my first scientist. And so after you said yes, I Googled you, and you are a really big deal. Like there's a lot on you on the internet. And so,
And the reason we chose you, and it's a field that Steve and I know nothing about.
nothing. So
is
speak
because
slowly.
you have really impacted this world.
Huge.
With your research, with your studies, with your findings, and you are really impacting the scientific community, and we celebrate people who have a heart and a passion for something outside of the church. The church is awesome, but for people that have a vision and a dream outside of the church to really impact the world and impact people. And you have clearly done that.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I can't even memorize this list, but tell us
Well,
anything, Steve.
after I Googled you, I'm like, Kara, she's huge. So anyways, I got to read this. And then I got boatloads of questions. But so first of all, you're not only a university professor at U of A, you're how old are you?
Really?
Is it okay?
No.
Okay, you're in your
You're
20s
young.
or your 30s or your
Point
40s?
Early 40s.
Okay, early 40s.
That
That's
is
good
young.
enough.
That's my point.
That's young.
Is you're
It's
young.
Because I shouldn't sometimes I'm
Yeah. Okay, we won't say that. You're still
I have people
young.
who are older than me. Then that's kind of even better too.
I'm 49, and you're a heck of a lot younger than me. That's the point.
Yeah.
So you're young, is my point, but you're already not only a university professor, but you're the youngest at the U of A to receive the title of distinguished university professor.
What does that mean, distinguished?
Yeah,
versus...
it means excellence in academia, teaching, and service to the community. So all the three pillars of academic, I would say, endeavors.
How many professors would reach that place at some point in their career, distinguished?
It's very rare. They usually awarded 1 or 2 per year. I think the university, I'm not
The
quite
university
sure,
will
probably
only
has
do 1 or 2 per year?
Yeah, so I think it's in total, it's around, I would say 50 to 70. I would have to double check that, but yeah.
In the university?
The entire history of the University of Alberta, yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
And you got that at age 40-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. which is unusual. You're the youngest ever to get that.
What favor.
You're
Yeah,
also
it's a lot of favor. Yeah.
you're internationally recognized as highly cited, which means that a lot of people quote your work.
That's right. Yeah,
How many?
yeah.
What is the percentage of scientists that would be considered highly cited?
So there's about 7,000 in the world.
7,000 in the world, which is
that
like
received this
1%
Yes,
of.
yes. Top
Researchers.
1%. Correct.
So you have to be
all
in the top
fields.
1%
In all fields.
Wow.
in all fields.
Wow.
You've written over 230 research papers that have been referred to by others.
Yeah, I think I have more than that now.
More than that?
Yeah,
Okay, I was-
probably around 300.
Is it over 300 now?
I think
Okay,
so,
well, this I was reading an older article,
yeah.
which was a big deal then.
Yeah.
You hold a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Integrative Nutrition, Body Composition, Energy Metabolism, which provides you with substantial funding each year to support your research, which is why you can have 20 staff working for you.
Yeah, so that's a federal recognition, and it helps with salary support, and it also helps with some research funding. So it helps, the university to keep and maintain highly qualified or scientists that are doing groundbreaking research. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a federal recognition. I even got
Wow.
a letter from the Prime Minister.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Now, it says here, Trudeau.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. There you go. I've never got a letter from Trudeau.
I thought I
I
was
think
in
he
trouble.
mentioned me once, but not by name.
I thought I was in trouble. I'm like, what have I done now?
Oh, dear.
It says, I found this online, it says you presented your research in over 30 countries.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
So does that mean you've gone or they've,
I've been to more than 30 countries, and I think I've given more than 300 lectures plus around 92 community.
and most of these would be in what, universities?
It's a lot of events, and not necessarily only universities. I've been to universities, but also conferences and research days, events like that.
Yep.
Wow. So 30 countries. You've got some of Canada's most prestigious awards. One of them, you were rated by the WXN as one of Canada's most powerful women.
Yeah.
Top 100. That's cool.
Wow.
You know what
that's
happened
really
when I got that
amazing.
award? I was trying to tell my little girl about it, and she looked at me very skeptical and like, you do not have superpowers.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
You're like-
excuse me, I just finished cooking dinner. I've cleaned the bathroom
Yes.
before that. I'm giving you a bath, and I'm gonna go back to work after you're sleeping.
Wow.
I am a superwoman.
I know. That's why we need family. They keep us grounded.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that is cool. This would be one of the most powerful women in the country. Other one you got, another big award here. You got this, I'm going to say it because I see it online, whether you like it or not. You were 36 years old when you were named one of Canada's top 40
Yes.
under 40.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning,
Yeah.
and that's all spheres.
Yes.
Basically, you're one of the most influential young people in under 40. That was what that was about?
Yes. Yes. That's
So help
yeah.
help us understand, because
Yeah,
Steve and I are not scientists.
Yeah.
Why would you get an award like that? What have you done? What's
Yeah.
your angle, your research?
So I work on the importance of nutrition, and many people think, well, I know everything about nutrition, just eat fruits and vegetables. And we go beyond. We look at nutrition really to help people live longer and better lives. And what are the specific nutrients? What are our requirements? How much does our body needs? And I study also a part of nutrition that's related to nutritional assessment, and more directly related to body composition. So the amounts.
Okay, body composition. Help me. What does that
Yeah,
mean?
so body composition is the amounts of muscle and fat that we have in our body. Bone mass is also
Bone
part
mass,
of body
okay.
composition. So my research is very focused on low muscle mass and how can we assess low muscle mass, but also how can we use nutrition to halt muscle loss and help people gain muscle back. So this is what I do.
But it's also in relation to disease.
Yes,
And disease prevention and
Yeah, I'm very focused. I work on different areas, but my primary passion and focus is cancer research.
cancer research and the role of body composition
Correct.
and muscle in relation to cancer prevention, and also
Yes, so how can muscle mass impact how much, for example, chemotherapy you're going to be able to receive, how much or survivorship or quality of life or function. So even your ability to open a bottle of water depends on your muscle.
Right.
Lifting from a chair, if you're gonna
Right.
rise up from a chair, you're going to need to use your muscle. So we work with that, and how can we help healthcare professionals?
So has your research and your papers and your findings impacted the cancer research?
Yes. So in general, why body composition is important, and looking at methodologies of how can we assess that. But also in cancer, especially more recently, we've publishing a lot of research and working on a lot of studies. Each study can take 6-7 years to be completed, on the impact of nutrition to help people, again, build that muscle. And we know that muscle is such an important organ, and I can talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, cancer. I was actually looking online. It says here that you have visiting professorships at University of Hawaii's Cancer Center and Newcastle University in UK.
Yes.
Meaning you go to Hawaii and teach on...
I did research. So we went there for, I spent a couple months there doing research in UK. It was about, I can't remember how long it was in UK. It was a long time ago, 2 months at least, I think. Also doing research and collaborating and talking. In Newcastle was more related to aging, because we all lose muscle as we age, but we can prevent that muscle decline to an extent that will impact our lives, that will impact our health. But so I had an office with an ocean view in Hawaii.
Really?
Nice.
It's a real burden when they call you back to Hawaii.
So you can
you try to get that usually around February.
Right, I know. It was actually at the end of the year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
I know. I mean, we don't really think of, most people don't think of muscle as, that important unless, you want to go to the gym and you want to look a certain way to look better. Yeah. But you really take it from
well, and I saw this picture.
Perspective of nutrition versus just
well, and you
exercise.
can put people in a machine, because I watched this. They did a CBC documentary on you. I had to pay $2 online to watch it.
That's it.
I did
tell
watch
them
it.
to raise the price.
I think, doesn't CBC already make a lot of money? Where are they charging?
No, I paid and I got to watch this, and I saw you sticking someone in this little white machine.
The bod pod.
What is it called?
It's called the bod pod.
The bod pod. I told Kara, I said, I want to go in that machine. I want to get my muscle checked. But in there, you can tell how much. What does that machine tell a person?
So it tells you how much fat mass and then fat-free mass you have in your body. And muscle is part of the fat-free mass compartment of your body. So it tells you your body composition.
So would people, like in the general public, will they can they now just come in and get this stuff done? Or is this something that you're kind of working towards in the future, that people can come in and you can say, okay, here's your problem. You need more muscle, or you need more of this.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I've done, going back to your question about the distinguished professor and things that I differentiated myself, is we work towards opening up our research unit for the public, so the public can benefit with some of these assessments. We kind of have a backlog now. We have more interest than we have than we can handle, but which is wonderful. But one of the things is that really, how can we bring the community to the university? So this is one of the things that I worked on, making sure that those techniques are available. But we are also testing equipment that people can have at gyms or at the doctor's office as well. So at the same time that I'm using the most sophisticated techniques, we have the best lab in Canada, one of the top in the world. I'm also working towards bringing that back, and how can we actually make a change people's life, not only at the, people who are athletes want to know about their body composition, but especially patients, which is my passion, really working on the hospital and clinicians who really need to build muscle to help them fight their disease.
So at the end of the day, so we all understand, you're saying that muscle plays an extremely important part in disease prevention and fighting disease as well.
So everyone thinks of muscle as muscle is an organ, and it's very important for movement, balance, and posture. We all understand that. But what we advocate for is really looking at muscle as this metabolic powerhouse. It's a reservoir of amino acids, which is the building blocks of protein that are mobilized when our body is fighting disease, for example.
Really?
So it helps with our immune system. It helps us storage glucose. And the muscle really produces molecules that are talking all over our body, with all over with organs all over our body. So really responsible for a lot of functions in our body.
Wow. Yeah. I
So
didn't
more
realize that.
muscle means better health?
Absolutely. Yes.
Really?
Better at
Yes.
fighting disease,
Fighting
better
disease.
at
Yes,
preventing
there's a lot
disease.
of association. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you even
And-
have this cookbook. I know
Oh, yeah. Here,
high
give me one of those.
protein cookbook
Yeah.
for muscle health during
is-
cancer
Yes,
treatment. You know,
yes.
I would have never thought I had any idea that protein was so important in
Right, yeah.
preventing and fighting cancer.
Now, I've been
you know.
keto.
So
I've been keto
You've been
for
keto?
5 years.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
this is what I've been looking for. So
Yeah.
high protein. How much do the vegans love you
Oh my
for
goodness! I
writing
got hate
this?
emails. Vegans hate me. They really do.
Do they?
Well, I'm gonna redeem myself because we're working on a plant protein
Yeah.
cookbook. But
Are you?
I was still gonna put my picture holding this one on the vegan one. My parents are vegans, but in Brazil, which is very tough.
Your
Wow.
parents
My
are
parents
vegans?
Wow.
yes.
And you wrote the high protein cookbook
Right, I
for
know.
muscle health during cancer
well,
treatment.
technically, you
But-
don't need necessarily.
it's
Is
so-
it all meat
Really
protein,
nice.
or can you have vegetable?
This one is all meat protein.
All
We can it's plant proteins are wonderful too, but we need to learn how to mix them, right? And
Okay.
and we talk a little bit about when you have cancer, we really want to use protein that's going to maximize your muscle building, and it's not about which one is better. We just
Right.
created
Right.
a protein.
So where can people get this?
Yeah, where
Well,
do
this
people buy that?
cookbook, and it's a wonderful story. We did it on the side of our desks. We've always had in my lab, and I teach my students that a passion to give back. Whatever we're learning, can we translate or transform that in a way that the public can benefit? Because, taxpayer money is what is funding us and funding our university. So we want to give back and we want to bless people that way. So all of the pictures in this cookbook was my student, Anissa Armet, who, my former student, she's a doctor now, who took all these beautiful
Wow,
pictures.
really?
Absolutely wonderful.
You guys
Incredible.
cooked all that yourself?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fun.
So it's tested. But this is free of charge, and we've made
Where
it
would they get
available. If you Google it, you can download your version. It's a university. A university website.
Okay.
We have it in Spanish, in Portuguese. It's being translated now to French, Arabic. Yeah. And
Wow.
and there is another language that I think Polish, as well.
Wow.
And these are people who come to us and say, can we translate it? So this is available free of charge. If you wanted a printed copy, you can get it on Amazon, and the price you pay is the cost of printing only. We don't make
Yep.
any money
Wow.
out of it because, again, we wanted to give it as a gift. The copies you're looking at, it doesn't look as good on Amazon, but these ones were actually donor money. Well,
Yeah.
I presented about this work, and someone called me like, how much money do you need,
Wow.
Carla, to print that and distribute it across cancer centers? And I said, how much money do you have?
Wow. So this is available in cancer centers then.
Yeah, so we distributed as many copies as we got. So again, if we get more money, we will be printing and distributing. And the second batch that we were able to print 1,000 copies, I distributed as well to cancer centers around Canada.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make it available. Some of them will put it on their libraries so that more
Wow.
patients could
So
benefit.
did you actually do studies with cancer patients to see the impact of higher or lower levels of protein
we actually.
intake?
I started one as a new professor.
Okay.
I finished as the last level of professorship. I joke that I started as an assistant professor,
Yeah.
first level, finished as a full professor. My
Yeah.
study, but it's we just actually recently published one of our studies. It was a small study, but again highlighting the importance that protein builds muscle, because
Yeah.
people don't think nutrition.
Right.
It's important and important alone, and we've showed how important it is for patients. And we have several other ongoing studies now looking
Yeah.
at how much people actually need. So
Right.
there's a lot of research in this area.
Yeah.
I'm going for my third time now trying
Wow.
to get this funding. So it's funded for the second time. It takes time to
Yeah.
get research
Wow.
funded.
Good
It takes
for you.
resilience.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of rejection too.
Yeah. Well, you
But we
have
believe in
really,
what we're doing.
I just love that you have so impacted
thank
the
you.
scientific community for this, you know, and I love that believers and Christians are out there
Yeah.
And to
as
see the
top
whole world.
performers. You know, I mean, you've been featured in Forbes and Mary Claire and Women's
The
Health.
Atlantic,
You
the
know,
Globe and Mail.
And I just love that you're a believer.
Yeah.
And that
Are you one
have
of those
just-
believers who really loves Jesus
I really
too?
love Jesus.
Do ya?
Everything I have belongs to him.
So
He can
were
take
you-
it away anytime too, right? So everything I
Yeah.
have and I do comes from him. I've never dreamed of anything.
Yeah.
I've
So
never
now I
dreamed.
have
So-
I hear a hint of an accent.
Yeah.
I don't think you're from
a
Canada
hint.
originally.
Yeah, French Canadian. I joke
Yeah, okay.
sometimes. No.
So were you born a scientist, and where are you from, and
yeah.
how did you come into this
Yeah,
role?
so I was born in Brazil, born and raised, and I've always I think I believe it since I was like 10 or 12 years old. I said I was going to leave Brazil and move to US.
Really?
I've just had that desire in my heart.
And did you want to be a scientist, a professor
No,
back then?
I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I wanted something related to health, and I thought of medicine. I also ended up getting, when I was time to decide, I ended up getting to law school. I did a couple months of law school. I'm like, that's
In
not
law school?
Law school.
yeah, it was not for me until the results from the admission process from my university where I did my nutrition degree came out saying that I was admitted. And then I gave up. I said, law wasn't for me really.
No.
I'm not an argument person. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'll let the people fight. I'm
Yes.
just like, it's fine. it's not my thing. But second year during my university career, I knew I wanted to be a professor.
Really?
I was a lot of teaching in my family, and
Is your mom a teacher?
My mom she's a professor, at
okay.
university too. She's not a scientist, so she teaches. She has tons of degrees. Very amazing woman. But I have a lot of cousins. The teaching is really in my family, and I've learned about research. I started volunteering.
Yeah.
So I started doing research very early on in my degree. I had a Brazilian federal scholarship to do research, 20 hours
Wow.
per week in Brazil.
So then how did you end up in Canada? Was the red carpet rolled out for you?
Oh,
or
I wish,
how
right?
did that happen?
Nothing is a yes first for my life.
You always get a no
I
before
always
you get a yes.
God, I just look at God, I'm like, again, let's do this then. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting, and I'll try to summarize the story. But I was already dating my husband, and when I met him, he really didn't Leandro, yes. He didn't want to leave Brazil. And I stopped studying English because I thought, okay, so if he's not gonna leave, I know enough English. But when I was finishing university and wanted to do a master's in order to become a professor, he was happy to leave. He said, you know what, I also need to learn English, so why don't we go abroad, and you can do like 2 months 2 years, do a master's degree, and I will study English. I'm like,
And you guys were thinking U.S.?
U.S., yeah. I haven't heard about Canada.
And he said, well, we
I
can
knew
do it
Canada
as
was a
long as it's
country in
2
the world.
years. Okay.
Yeah, 2 years. He gave me the time limit, 2 years. And so what happened is I ended up going to a conference in Brazil, in his parents' city, and this very, very well-known professor, I approached her at the end of her talk.
Was this before you went to the U.S.?
Oh, I had never left Brazil.
Okay. So this is, you were at this
I had never left
conference.
Brazil. I was at this conference, and again, trying to find a master's degree. And then so I approached her and I told her I really wanted to study
Because you needed
abroad.
someone to sponsor you.
You need a professor.
In order for you to do your MBA or your master's.
Yes.
Sorry.
And we don't know, sometimes we don't know much of how those things work behind the scenes. And I had very little idea of how things work.
You can't become a professor unless you find a professor who will sponsor you?
So most universities, you have to find a supervisor, right? Otherwise, people will just come and register, but who is going to mentor you? It's really a very close relationship.
And especially for you to move from Brazil to another country, you needed someone to sponsor.
Yes.
So you were at this conference and you met this professor.
Yes. And she said, come work with me.
Wow.
And then someone...
In the U.S.?
So she was in Brazil as a guest speaker.
Yeah, but she said, come to the U.S. and work with me.
Yes, in a very well-known university.
Wow.
And someone
What an open door.
someone jumped in the conversation, heard me talk, and said, you don't understand. She doesn't have a Brazilian scholarship to go study with you. The professor turned to this woman who I don't know who it was, said, no, I know. I'm offering her a scholarship.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
I know, right? So it's like, what are the odds of this happening?
Wow.
She's like super famous. She wrote book chapters that I studied.
Wow.
So
And she offers you just meeting you once,
yeah.
favor on your
Yeah,
life. She says, I will give you a scholarship.
Correct.
You come.
So
Yeah.
did you go?
Well, I wish. No, I didn't, because I think God had better for me. I'm sure God had better for me. That was a process. So what happened is when I went to look at the application process, because she said yes,
Right.
the next step is you have to be accepted as
Yeah.
a grad student. And part of it was I had to do the English as a second language test. In the US,
Okay.
they have another
Yes.
test called
I
the
know
GRE.
Canada has the same type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So I had about a month and a half to study. And I remember I had stopped studying English. And long story short, I tried my best, but I didn't pass the
You
test.
failed the exam.
I failed the exam.
Just
And
for English.
The English exam.
yeah, because the GRE I also failed, but
Maybe
it's
you
a-
were just talking
well, the
too
GRE is
fast.
so tough.
I'm just saying. It could have been that.
Right? GRE is very tough though. Like
So-
they usually for international students, they're usually more flexible with the GRE test. But it's so funny because I was so frustrated. I had testified in front of the church
Before the exam.
Okay, hold on.
So-
After she said
Yeah.
she wanted you,
Yeah, that
you
was
told the
huge.
whole church,
Oh, yeah, I tell everyone.
hallelujah.
Yeah.
I've been accepted.
Exactly.
Favor.
I got a scholarship. I've got one of the
I'm
best
going to the
professors,
US.
most famous in the
so
world, inviting me.
What is gonna stop me?
So then you had to do
and
the
then
exam.
you failed the English
I
test.
failed the English test. I know. I
Oh
think it
my
was like, if I
goodness.
remember correctly, it was around one question only that I got wrong or something
Oh
like that.
my
It was like something
goodness.
minor, right? But there is no, there is no, oh, can you make an exception? No, you either pass or you don't pass. And
so
for
then-
you, what happened is I didn't have enough time to retake the test because of the timelines of acceptance.
Wow.
And I.
So how devastated were
Oh,
you?
I was very devastated.
So did that mean you lost the scholarship
I
and you lost the
yeah.
position?
Yeah, I asked the professor, can you do anything? She's like, oh, unfortunately. And I would do the same because it means
Yeah.
the student is not prepared.
No.
If they don't have that level of English, right? There are some safeguards that are in place to also protect the student from failing.
Wow.
And I was devastated, yes, because, it was almost like it was a dream that was crushed and I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I just like, okay, we'll keep going. I didn't have the relationship with God that I have today to really see everything. But
You grew up in a Christian home?
yes,
Did
I
you
was very
attend a
lucky
church? What
to-
kind of church would you have gone to?
it was a Baptist church, but Baptist church in Brazil are Pentecostal. So yeah, I grew up in a church.
Really? The Baptists in Brazil are all Pentecostal? Well, what are the Baptists?
Pentecostal.
Pentecostal.
So there's nothing but Pentecostal there.
You weathered this massive
Yeah.
disappointment, and then what did you do? I mean, obviously you're here in Canada, so how did you get here?
Yeah, how did I get here? That's funny. So then, but one of the things that's important is because that happened, we started talking more and looking more into things and really how would the future looks like if we do leave Brazil.
Right.
And we were also always sheltered by our families there, umbilical cord going all the way.
Yes.
But we went, there was an English as a second language fair in my city.
A fair.
So
Okay.
they had booths of
Yeah.
different
yeah.
universities from all over Canada, including the University of Alberta.
Okay.
So the International Center had a booth there. And we went to that fair. And then that's when I started thinking Canada. And when we stopped at the University of Alberta, I remember asking them, also, do you have a nutrition program there? And they said, well, we're here to advertise the English as a second language school, but here's a brochure of our university and other programs they have to offer. And they've had something about nutrition and more specifically my area of research, which is clinical nutrition, so related to disease.
Right.
And I went online. I was just learning how to use the computer, and I Googled it, and I loved the research by this professor who was being featured. And
At U of A.
at U of A. And my husband said, the cost of living in Edmonton is pretty cheap.
Wow.
It's pretty
What
good.
year
At
was
that time,
Anyways, go on.
Yeah, that-
Okay.
years ago.
That was
But-
a while back.
Yeah, a while back, my chair just. And then what happened is we started looking, and he said, okay, like we could go. Do you want to email professors? So I started emailing professors, especially this person that I really wanted to work with. And I've emailed her, and today I know how naive that was
Right.
because I get hundreds of emails per month.
Hundreds of emails a
for
month.
sure.
From students who want to come work for
Absolutely,
you.
from all over the world. And most
And
of
do
my
you
colleagues
can
do
you
too.
read them all?
I don't. I actually have someone in my lab that does it. So she
Hundreds a
will-
month
Absolutely.
saying, please pick me.
Especially close to deadlines of applying. Yeah.
Wow.
It's very tough.
Okay,
Well,
so
I'm glad you
were
got my email.
As if, guys
Okay,
are
so you were
friends.
emailing professors
Yeah.
at U of A.
Yeah, especially this
Yeah.
professor that I really wanted to work with her. I've emailed her first. And she said, unfortunately, I don't have a position for you because they have to have the research project
Right.
in place, the funding in place, unless I bring money from Brazil. And
And this
you
is before you had your master's. This was,
Oh, yeah. I didn't have a master's.
was-
I was an
okay.
undergraduate student.
Yeah.
But I had 2 years of research experience in Brazil. I had papers published, so I was not a normal undergraduate student. But then and she said, I don't have a position, and almost like for the near future, I won't have it as well.
Okay.
So I kind of got lost.
Yeah.
In a very amazing way. She was brilliant, very nice person. But long story short, I was very devastated. I've emailed another professor, a couple other people who also said no after her. And I was disappointed. And my husband said, they don't know you. They need to meet you. And I said, well, he's like, let's just go to Canada. And
So Leandro says,
Leandro said it.
if they know
It
you,
was him.
they'll
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That's what he said.
Wow.
That's
And-
faith?
Yeah, that's faith.
Or he just
Right.
knows you're that amazing.
I know. But then I said, what do you mean? Are we going to go for vacation? He's like, we can't afford it. We're just going to move to Canada.
Wow.
I'm like, what are you talking about, right? He's an all or nothing type of
Yeah.
person.
I like him already.
Yeah. And then what happened is we packed and moved to Canada.
So you sold everything or what?
We sold our cars. That's where we got money from because
Cars?
cars in Brazil are expensive.
So you sold 2 cars,
2 cars and a land where we were going to build
Your
our dream
land, yeah.
house.
sold everything,
Sold everything.
moved to Canada
Packed with 2 suitcases.
with no
all
opportunity,
my shoes
no promise.
left behind.
Oh, your shoes?
All my shoes.
Who was that chick? That Brazilian woman who had all the shoes.
Emil de Marcos or
Wasn't
Do
there
I know that?
some
No,
woman who
anyway,
had like
I don't
1,000 pairs of shoes?
Oh, yeah.
She was from Brazil.
It's our culture. But it was very tough because we had a beautiful house. Like when we got married, we had, I think 300 people at our wedding. So we had like everything, the best that you can imagine. And we moved here with nothing, no furniture.
with just your suitcases.
We bought like 2 towels, I guess. It was crazy. We left
And
all
you
our
came on,
beautiful
you
things.
couldn't get a work permit.
No, we couldn't get a work permit. So we were registered as English as a second language students. And if we're full-time, that's how we got the work permit to be here for 2 months. So I had 2 months. My husband said, you have 2 months to get accepted.
Wow.
All or nothing, all of
And
our
it cost
savings.
us everything we have, so don't
Exactly.
screw this up.
Exactly. Can you imagine?
so you went to go
Yeah.
visit her, I'm imagine,
Yeah,
right?
so then
at
when
U
we
of A?
came here, I've emailed her and I said, I know you don't have a position for me, but can I visit your lab? And she, of course. So I went to her office and she said, the first thing she said is like, so what are you here? Is your husband working in Edmonton? And I said, nope, I sold everything I had. I packed and came to work with you. So she
Hold it,
almost
whoa,
fainted.
stop. Okay, slow down. You told her, no, I just sold everything I had, moved from Brazil
Yeah.
to Canada to work with you, the lady who said no to me when I asked you if I could come work for you.
And then
What'd she say?
I smiled. She almost fainted. She was like, but I told you I didn't have a position for you. I don't have funding. She really panicked. And I was smiling and calm. And I said, I'm going to pray you're going to get the money.
I'm
She's
gonna pray.
Pray? Yeah. She's looking at me, pray. I didn't know Canadians didn't talk about God. I had no idea. So she's like staring at me. She's like, okay.
You go ahead and pray.
And it's so amazing. Like fasting forward this story, she got a huge grant later, and it was a team grant. And
How long later?
Oh, it was very like a few months later only.
So had you gone back
she
to
accepted
Brazil?
Me. No, we didn't.
Okay.
So she accepted me. She said, I've never seen someone so determined like that in my life before. I don't have the funding, but I'll admit you, and we'll see what we're gonna do.
So she admitted you
Yeah.
before having the funding,
Yeah,
and then a
correct.
couple months later,
Yeah.
God answered your prayer.
Yes.
And what did she say when she got the funding? Was that a surprise to her?
My entire degree was always joking whenever they were going to apply for something. Carla, can you pray for us?
Really?
Yeah. And when I graduated, it
Was
so
she
special.
shocked when they came in, or was it?
I don't know. Like I don't remember I don't remember very well. But it was like it's an amazing testimony, right? I tell that to everyone because it's that's how it happened, and I just had that faith that she was gonna get the money. With finances, I'm always like that. With money, I'm like, God will provide. I've never worried about money in my entire life for anything because I know it belongs to him. So he can give at any time and any measure he wanted. And it was when I defended my PhD, and one of our research was one of the most important of our careers. It's very well known. We found out that people with obesity, so people living in larger body weights, can have as little muscle as someone that looks like flesh and bone. And that was an independent predictor of survival. You could have stage 1 cancer.
So someone who is really overweight can have as tiny a muscles as someone who's skinny and dying. And that's a deciding factor.
It's a deciding factor.
Whether they live or die.
Yeah, even comparing stage 1 cancer, which is you just take the cancer off, like surgery, and off you go, you're a cancer survivor, versus stage 4, which is metastatic cancer. Muscle is that important. And so people living in larger body weights, they are carrying extra weight. And because of that, they do have more muscles. The majority
you would think
of
so,
people,
yeah.
the majority would do. But there is a proportion of people where they gain weight without the parallel increasing muscle mass and incrementing muscle strength as well. So mass and strength. And those are the people who we call it sarcopenic obesity. So they have obesity, but they have low muscle, which is sarcopenia. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so that was one of the most important research we published in very well-known journals, cited thousands of times now. So really changed the sphere because everyone, even when I was applying for scholarships, I remember nutrition is not priority, right? Like there's people curing cancer with other things, and we had to show that nutrition also impacts survival. And nowadays, a lot of people, they don't want to get cancer treatment because they feel so weak. And that is directly related to their muscles as well. So there is something in cancer research now called supportive cancer care, supportive care. And nutrition is part of the supportive care and very important to patients as well. So we started, tapping on this territory. And if I can tell more supernatural story.
Yes, please.
Please do.
But, so this is, I was going to, just to finish my thought, when I defended my PhD, I had the email where she rejected, that she said no to me.
So who rejected you?
Well, my
professor.
Supervisor, right?
Oh, your
That she had
supervisor,
to go to.
professor.
Yeah.
So then when I put that up, everyone started crying because, I said, I just came anyway. Don't do that to me, by the way. Things don't work quite like the same nowadays. But it was amazing. And
Can I just ask you, you said, when you talk about faith, and particularly with money, you just absolutely know God will come through for you. You know he's going to, you don't always get everything you want, but you'll get what you need.
Yeah.
And why do you think you have that kind of faith? How would you, when you look at your life kind of more critically, how do you cultivate faith like that? Why are you so full of expectation when you've been rejected?
Oh yeah,
You've seen,
all the time.
So why is it that you have so much expectation?
I really believe faith is a gift. It is a gift from God, and He has given me that gift, and I have to steward that gift. And the way I really operate in that gift is searching my heart and searching my thoughts. So whenever doubt comes to my mind, I just speak against it.
Whenever doubt comes to your mind?
I just speak against it. And I'll just say, no, because there's one church in Brazil that says, we hold our Bible in the beginning of the service and say, this is my Bible. I am what it says I am. I have what it says I have. I can do what it says I can do. Period.
Nice.
Period.
Wow.
So if God doesn't give you something to me, He will provide something else. There is another way, but I will fight it because sometimes He's not giving it because there is something going on in the spiritual realm that I have to fight. So
you consciously, when doubt comes, and it does, you consciously take those thoughts captive.
Absolutely.
And this would be like a daily thing.
With worship music.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes I would write Bible verses in Post-it notes, and I'll put it in front of me so that I would speak even when you don't feel it
So this
push it against it.
So this whole the scientific research realm is obviously different than our wheelhouse, but in your experience, like what would be one of the top 5, 10, disappointments you've experienced in your career?
Oh my goodness. There's
that you've
so many.
overcome, that you've seen, that you've had to walk through.
It's so interesting because our career is even, and I tell that to my students, right? Because we want to train this generation as well of learning how to deal with rejection. Like I can get a big award. A couple weeks ago, I got a very international award, and I got a rejection.
Just a couple weeks ago?
A few weeks ago, last month, I got an international award, but then I got a rejection from the grant in the federal government who is paying for all my stuff. So I'm like,
right.
But you know what I mean? It's brutal because it's competitive. It's very competitive. There isn't enough funding in research. We want more. We certainly need more funding. But I have to deal with that. I'm like, yes. And I think that it keeps my humility on track as well.
Yeah.
But we get rejections all the time. Our papers can get rejected the first time you submit to a journal.
And who do you submit them to?
So there are scientific journals in the world that, are going to be evaluating your research. So they have reviewers that are going to see and help ask for changes or decline, say it's not novel. And it's all about novelty and how exciting it is to get in the very prestigious journals. But you can get rejected, and you can get rejected. You can get rejected of grants. You can get rejected of awards that you apply for, because awards attract funding as well.
Yes.
So
it's important.
It's all about funding. Right. So I've had those rejections, like not only with research funding, with awards that I was certain I was going to get, I didn't get. For, even when I said, well, God, I want favor, but sometimes it's not meant to be.
Right.
So you have to learn how to deal with rejection too. But I never say, it's not meant to be. A lot of times, people would tell me it's not meant to be, give up. And I'm like, no, I just know it in my heart too. When God wants me to fight for something, or when I have to let go. Yeah. But to, speaking about the money too, and I'll give you more examples, but I just don't want to forget that. For whatever reason, I keep thinking of this one here. When I first started school, when we first came to Canada and I got this scholarship.
Yes.
And I was so happy. I really missed my family. We've arrived in March, and December, Christmas was a big thing for us, and I really wanted to go, really wanted to see my family. My husband said there is no way we could go, financially speaking. And I said, God will make a way. He's going to give us the money. And
to go back to Brazil.
Yeah. And I remember, I was even at our pastor's house, and my husband was like teasing me. I'm like, oh yeah, so we'll see. But I got in the mail, I got a check with exactly the money for 2 of our tickets plus 10% tithe.
Plus the 10%.
Plus the 10%, because you have to be faithful on that too. Very important to be faithful. Whenever you leave a door open on that, the enemy can act in our finances. We have to learn how to be more generous and even go beyond that.
To give,
need to give. But long story short, I found out, I'm like, where is this check? I have no idea that this existed in Canada. It's a scholarship. Wow. So that's the importance of people to give. So some donor gave scholarship, they gave money to the university, right? A donation, and they have their system on how they're gonna adjudicate that. And they said, your grades from Brazil are excellent. Keep up the good work, type of thing.
But it wasn't
It
the
wasn't
money
something you
plus
applied
20%.
No.
It was the money plus 10%.
Correct.
And it wasn't something you applied for.
No.
So you didn't even know it was coming. It wasn't like, I applied for this and I'm hoping. It was just the Lord provided that.
I had no idea. And I also learned about generosity and how do you call it here? When people donate money, philanthropy. Because in Brazil, I've never had that close to me in my reality and university. And the university donors it's such a blessing. I recently interacted with someone that has been blessing my research program in an amazing way. And we should do more. That's a testimony in my field. It's a testimony for us, for our students. And it's very important.
So is there a good portion of money that comes from philanthropists?
I don't, I would say at the university, yes, absolutely.
Yes, at the university,
a lot of the very interesting and cool things and things outside of the box is philanthropy work. Our unit became, we have federal funding, for example, but we became the best in the world because of philanthropic money. And it was the first time ever that some money was given to nutrition.
That people gave.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've really been thinking about it lately. I said, God, because at the University of Calgary, I heard that they have a way more philanthropists and people funding research. And I said, I want that. I want to be able to tell people that a Christian friend gave it to me.
Yeah.
I want to be like, it's the Christians. It's going to be the Christian.
And I don't think
scholarship or the
Christians would
Christian
normally
research.
think about giving into
Yeah.
causes that are outside of Christian
exactly.
work. But this is Christian work. This is God's work. This is impacting disease and the study of nutrition, and having
It is
impact
my dream.
in people's lives.
Yeah, and I'm not asking for money. I'm just saying how important it was for me, and as that is a testimony. Whatever. So yes, God can lead you to donate outside it, because God will give it to me if I pray. If He's in alignment with His word. His word says He will give it to me. So it's about the testimony. And I didn't have money to give back. So you know what I did? I started donating my hair. I would grow, like I've had a very long hair, and I've donated my hair, I believe 3 or 4 times already, 12
Really?
inches of it. Because I wanted to be part of it, but I have no money. I was a
Wow.
poor student. But I wanted to give back. But even small things, like when we were when we really had to be tight on our finances when we moved to the US for training, God will give it to me. For example, someone would give me an earring, and I'll get the necklace of the exact same earring from completely different people. Like He would give to me something that just a treat, right? It's just,
Well, and those little things too, they build your faith.
oh yeah,
When God
exactly.
does something like that, and you just know, like, why would He even care about earrings
Exactly.
matching with your necklace?
He does.
But He hits His way of saying, I know you.
Yeah.
I know what you like.
Exactly.
It's like the 10% plus the trip.
Yeah.
If it was 30% more, it might have looked like fluke. But because it was exactly what you need, it's God saying, I know where you live.
Exactly.
I heard your prayer. I'm with you. And then you have faith, more faith the next time.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned that you went to the United States.
So yes, that was after I
this was
finished
years
my
after?
PhD.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you finished your PhD at the U of A.
I finished my PhD at the U of A, and I wanted to be a professor at the U of A because I've had everything available to me. I really love my university, and they've all the doors were open for me as an international student. I was able to get awards, and so I wanted to be a professor here. That was the dream of my life. It would be like, Carla, we'll send you anywhere. You want to go to Harvard or whatever? I'm like, no. What are you talking about? I want the University of Alberta. I want to be a professor there.
U of A.
But I had to leave, and I remember telling
You had to leave.
You have to train somewhere else.
Okay.
To bring.
So you have
back
to leave the U
novel.
of A to go train somewhere
Yeah,
else.
usually
okay?
that's the route. Yeah, that's the most common route. And I remember talking to the department chair at that time, and he said, Carla, you do have to leave. I said, I understand that. So we were established. Leandro had a good job, and I said, okay, let's leave. And we have to, let's work somewhere else. And at that time, I'm very strategic in terms of how to plan my future. So what happens if, and of course, the strategy doesn't come from my own brain, but they were building this beautiful unit here. The professor who was building it, who was my supervisor, she was going to retire in a few years. And I said, well, they're going to have to hire me if I train on how to manage that, because who else is going to do it? So it's almost like a win-win situation, right? So I went to train in the U.S., but then that meant
And they're building a new building.
they were building a new unit, a research unit, and the
Okay.
equipment that they were building was very sophisticated.
And this is what you want. So you're hoping to come back for it.
Yeah, I was like, they're going to have to hire me. I'll
So
give
you
them
go to
no
the
option.
U.S. Where in the U.S.?
We went to Bethesda, Maryland, the National Institutes of Health.
So you go to Maryland.
Yes, so we went there, and that was very, very high cost of living. And my husband said, okay, if we're going to go, I'm going to study, and while you are doing your postdoctoral fellowship. So this is what it's called. It's a postdoctoral fellowship. So it's a time where people train more, and you're going to become ready to run your own lab. So I just finished, you're very fresh out of grad school when you finish your PhD, and you're being trained to be like, I am a business runner. It's just, I feel it's not for profit one.
Right.
I often joke that when I got my big awards and I was receiving the awards, I'm like, we're the poor ones, like the one, the not for profit ones. They're like all these like millionaires getting it. But it's just a joke. I'm happy with. I think that when you're aligned with what God wants for your life, that's what's
where you wanna be.
important. That's where the success
But it's
is.
running your lab is like running a business.
Oh, yeah,
you have
totally
staff,
running
you
a
have
business.
budget, you have to
I
raise
have
money.
problems. Yes,
Yes.
I need money, and yeah, it's all of that. So then we went to the US for a year, but my goal was Canada, Edmonton, University of Alberta. I wouldn't even look to any other side. I said, I'm just going to wait until they have a position for me. So that was the goal of going to the US.
Okay. So then you went to Maryland, but then I know you went to Florida.
Yes. So then what happened is when I was, I've applied for, there was a position that opened up in Canada. And at that time, there's several stories in between. I'm going to summarize it. But at that time, I applied. But it was a position that was higher up than where my level was. Like I'm, new professor. And what happened is, a postdoc only at that time. And I've applied, but they told me I was shortlisted, but they're going to repost the position. But my husband and I were really like, okay, we can't be postdocs for any longer. Financially, it was difficult for us. And he found a professor position in Florida for me to apply to.
Oh, he found it just online?
Googled professor positions, nutrition, Florida. I joke.
He chose Florida.
Yeah, he's like, I want to live in Florida. So
because he wanted to live there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
he found this job for you.
And I hadn't seen that
Somewhere
position.
warm.
And I'm like, how
And
did
you
you
applied
find this?
and you got it.
I said, well, but I want to go to Canada. He's like, well, they don't have anything. So let's apply. And so I applied and it was my first job interview ever. And I got the position.
Wow.
But I was like very divided. I wasn't able to feel happy because
you want to be
Edmonton.
in Edmonton.
You felt called
but
to
you got the
Edmonton.
job
I have
in
a
Florida.
thermostat problem, right? Brazil, Edmonton,
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. So you moved to Florida.
Yeah, so we moved to Florida. And then when we moved to Florida, Canada said, oh, come for the interview. I'm like, oh, you're kidding me?
my goodness.
How long were you in Florida when you got the call from Canada?
Oh, it wasn't not even a month.
Not even a month.
Yeah.
So now you're there. You're working there. They moved you there. They spent money probably to move you there.
Correct.
Now you get this call.
Correct.
And
Well, and I was like, okay,
You're so happy?
that's the position. Yeah, I was like, that's my position. But, at the same time, there's the ethical part of we just moved. And anyways, we discussed it. And my husband's like, okay, you can go for the interview. But the thing is like, I didn't know what was going to happen next.
Right.
And I came for the interview. And I felt that there was a battle coming for sure in terms of what things are going to do. So I know in my spirit that I was going to get the position, but that wasn't going to be easy. And long story short is like when I got the call, say the position is yours, everyone here knowing how much I loved here, everyone here knowing how much I wanted that. And it's a position higher than what I've had it. As a family, my husband's like, we're here. I really love Florida, so it wasn't for us. So
he let you go to the interview.
Yeah.
You got the job.
A dream
and then
job.
he said, no, let's stay in Florida.
Well, yeah, I think that, there's a lot that went on, but it pretty much like we were having a wonderful life and cost of living is cheaper there.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what happened is I was not a wise person at that time. I freaked out, right? Because that was the dream of my life. And instead of talking, I cried and started making a...
Because your husband was not in agreement to
He wasn't in agreement,
move to Canada.
yes,
He just
yes.
just did not feel it and just
Yeah,
said
he didn't
nope.
feel it. Yeah, he didn't feel it. He
Wow.
thought that was, and we lived in front of a golf court. It was like a beautiful life, But I just knew it inside my heart that God wanted us back here. But
And how many years were you in Florida?
we were there altogether 2.5 years, but that was very recent when we had just moved, right?
Yeah.
But what happened is I've told the University of Alberta, finally, I've tried everything I believed for miracles, and it didn't happen. And, he's like, well, we're going to stay. And now what happened is I've called them and I said, I can't go. My husband doesn't want to move, and and like, no. Do you want us to talk to him? I'm like, no, it's okay. I tried that, it didn't work.
You tried everything. You cried, you wailed, you got angry.
Yeah, but they said no. Try one more week, so they would give me So my
really
whole
One more week
mood-
to give your husband
Yes,
a chance to change his mind.
Yes, and then I would believe it again, and it didn't happen. At the end, it didn't happen, and I look back and
You need to marry a strong person, though.
Right?
He's obviously a strong guy. He has opinions. But to be married to someone like you, he needs to be strong.
I am not the boss in my house. Just
No.
FYI. He's certainly the head of the house. But what happened is I had that, when I look back, right? Everything that I am today in terms of my spiritual authority and understanding the spiritual realm was born in
because
that
that was one of, we talked with you earlier, but that was one of the hardest seasons for you.
It was one
through
of the
your
hardest.
marriage and through your life.
Absolutely.
Having to say no to a dream where the doors were wide open.
Better than what I had.
Your husband wasn't in agreement. You were going to follow him. You were going to submit to this, and it's just like it was a death to you on the inside.
It was a death on the inside.
But the Lord, He uses pain, He uses suffering to do something in us that we could never do on our own.
Absolutely.
And from hearing your story, I know it was 2.5 years of we were thankful. I'm assuming for the position in Florida, but it was hard.
It was very hard. It was, and
that's how important agreement is to you.
Very important, and to also honor the word that says it's his decision. It's not mine. Right. And I had to learn that authority like that he had over my life as well. And I remember dying for myself, and I said, God, like I think I hear you. Right. I'm pretty sure I hear you. But I have to honor my husband because that's what your word says. That comes first over anything else, right?
Yeah. Well, and the Lord, there's so much testimony from what, we're gathering of God's favor, provision. You pray, you get it. It was just like one thing after another from the time you were a child, He opened doors for you, but then to go through this season of crushing. Yeah. And it's, have to almost give up on a dream. Now, I know it didn't die inside of you, but you had to just let it die. But I know with Steve, for many years,
this is your Isaac.
That was the way.
That was my Isaac.
A very similar story, and for years, we've been running our business now. We're coming up to our 20th anniversary, February 14th.
2 more days,
but
20th
for
anniversary.
many years, Steve, God had to pull him by the teeth and just say, "You're here in Drayton Valley." And we used to call it the Valley of Drayton, because it was
all I ever wanted to do was preach the gospel. All I ever wanted. I never wanted money. I never wanted a business. I if I could have just scraped by the skin of my teeth.
He lived in a hippie van.
I lived in a hippie van.
Living in a sleeping bag that he never washed for like 2 years. But anyways,
that's not an excuse.
When we came here, I got drunk and stayed drunk for 5 years.
I read your book.
Did you?
Yeah.
Like I was so broken. Like God has rejected me. My Isaac was ministry. Like your Isaac was
church ministry.
Yeah.
Church ministry. Your Isaac was this U of A job. It was your dream. Well, this was mine. And for God to take that away from me, not knowing that God has a habit of resurrecting Isaac.
Oh, yes.
Or giving you back. He gives you the desires of your heart. Sometimes 2.5 years later. Yeah. Sometimes it was probably 10 years before I really started to minister again. And so there was a long season where I just felt like my dream was gone.
Well, and he had to fight resentment. He had to fight resentment of God. Like, why have you put me here? Even at times he was upset at me. Well, if it wasn't for my wife who needed money, then we wouldn't be.
If my wife didn't need to be rich.
Me. This is God
then I could just preach.
Calling you to learn something in the business sphere.
Exactly.
It's not me, but he would blame me at times when he was very frustrated. But the Lord had to bring to death something in him that that there was something of an idol in a sense that the Lord crushed, and
it's after you lay it down and that thing dies.
Exactly.
Then God can give it to you, and it's not your God.
Yeah.
It's just a part of your life. It's a part of your assignment. Ministry for me now. If I didn't preach for the next 2 months, it wouldn't bother me at all. I don't go to half the places that invite me to come. I'm just as happy to go sit in my local church and listen to my pastor preach. Like he pulled that out of me. But when I go, I enjoy it. I have a good time. but it had to die, and you had to let that Isaac
I know.
die.
Yeah.
And then how did that play out? So 2.5 years later.
Yeah, so then it was God. It was like I for the first time started experiencing seeking God in what they say the secret place. It's really your intimacy with God is not just going to church, but can you make God your best friend, and can you learn how to hear from Him?
So you really got a prayer life during that 2.5
I really
years.
got a prayer life. I became an intercessor.
Because
Wow.
you were disappointed.
Extremely disappointed.
Your hope was deferred. And so what did that season look like for you? What did God do in you in that season?
He took me to a house of prayer in the city. And Florida is just like the move of God is there, and you can feel, it's an anointing there. And I went to this house of prayer. That's why I've learned how to hear from Him. And my heart was just back to Canada. I was started with this prayer life for God to change my husband's heart, open another position. And everyone told me, give up. You're giving up. When you give up a professor position, it doesn't come around.
Because they'll keep that position for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, they'll keep for another person because
you're waiting for someone to die.
It's a specific theme. Like they hire, you have to wait for someone to die, retire, or leave, which is very rare. And I remember people saying, Carla, give up. Canada is not meant to be. And I just know. And I would tell everyone, including the department chair, when I declined, I said exactly like this. I know that one day I'll be there. And they're all like, everyone thought I was so naive.
Like, so naive.
Yeah,
you're turning this down. You lost
my
it.
parents said that, my in-law, everyone said, just forget about it. I said, I will not forget. I will not. And I had pictures of Canada all over my house. But the psychological doesn't help much. It has really to be God. Has to be God. But
so you started with more of a selfish prayer.
I did start.
In the sense of just change my husband.
But at the same time, I was so broken.
Store.
I was very, and things in where I was at the university where I was were not easy for me. I had some persecution, but I never looked at my husband and said, "That's your fault that I'm here. It's because of you that I'm going through that." It was the opposite. So I always had to fight my thoughts.
Right.
But then I learned this relationship with God deep calls up to deep. How do you say it in English?
Deep calls to deep.
Yes, and God would just bring me to this different level, and He would even when sometimes you get discouraged because when you're waiting for something for so long, sometimes it feels like it's not going to happen. God would just remind me. He would bring me songs that would remind me of what He promised me, and people would speak over my life at prophetic words, and this is why it's so important for us to work if you have that gift of words of wisdom, words of knowledge. And He would just encourage me. He would be like supernatural. Like even one day I said, God, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I felt a hand moving I was praying inside the closet. A hand moved my face and I looked up and it was my luggage on top. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've had. So I've had a lot of supernatural experiences, and then I've learned about the power of intercession. And it went from praying about that to having a list of people who I would pray for, people who needed, amazing miracles or that I would pray and I would intercede. And God raised something from Edmond to as well from my church, from my former church at that time, Sister Lourdes, to be my spiritual mom through that journey, virtual spiritual mom, through that journey.
In Florida?
Yes, I was in Florida. She was here, right? So
she was here.
She was here. So sometimes she would pray for me and God would give her, like she would send me emails that were filled like with words of wisdom and knowledge and things that only God would know, that she would write it and God would send it by email to me until I heard how to hear.
So how in the end did you end up moving here? 2.5 years later?
2.5 years later, then there was this position that came up. And I remember once I came to Vancouver, there was a meeting in Vancouver that I came. I was living in the U.S. And it was so difficult for me to see all my friends here, all my Canadian friends at that meeting. And I remember like going to the washroom in this meeting. I had already checked out of the hotel and crying because I really, everyone was like, what happened? Why didn't you come? And
no one understands.
No one
in the
understood.
natural, it looks like, what kind of decision are you making?
But I remember when I came and when I arrived, the immigration officer said, welcome home. And I said, yes, I prophesied that. Well, what happened is they've had what I lost, the position that was amazing that I lost. God gave me double for my trouble.
Wow.
That's for sure. He gave me a better
double
position.
for your trouble.
Now, what do you mean by that?
How did that? It opened up again?
It was another position, but better with more funding. Yeah.
More funding.
Yeah.
Wow.
More funding.
But you had to wait
And God,
2.5 years or you wouldn't have
years.
got that.
And I prayed pretty much every day. I would wake up 2 a.m. in the morning and pray for an hour.
Wow.
And I love to sleep. When you were in Florida. I love to sleep when I was in Florida. Yeah.
So then the Lord changed your husband's heart.
Yeah. And it was also a season. He also asked, like, he has to tell his own story, but he also asked for things from God that he heard from God as well. But it was the timing too. But everything. So I came, and had I come 2 years before with the position they were giving it to me, I wouldn't be able to apply for the one I have now that I just got this year.
Wow.
See, only the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
now you mentioned, I heard you say this and I just want to go back to it, but you said in that season in Florida, those 2.5 years, you learned to hear him.
Oh yes.
Tell
What's
us about
that like?
And I
How
would
do you
also,
hear?
and I would not only that, but I've made one of my very best friends now, and we would walk around campus and praying. Can you imagine that? Like I had a prayer, like it's another level
It
of,
is.
Spiritual
United
authority.
States is
and
different
I would
than
just
Canada.
Pray, and I
The
would
church is different.
sometimes have my phone in my ears and pray over every door, so people would think I was on the phone, but I was actually praying over every door, blessing where I was.
Wow.
And instead of resenting as well, people who were mistreating me, I'm like, God, use me as an instrument. And I prayed, and the Lord sent a dean to that place where I was having issues, who loved God. When he came, he said, he publicly confessed like how much he loved God, and God was going to take, like, because of my prayer, I believe God shifted things around in that place even after I left, right? And I've never dishonored as well. I think honor and respect is very important to authority. And I think that there's a lot of principles over that, even when you're suffering. I told God, I'm not going to tell anyone what happened to me unless they come and ask me. So everything that happened, it was like I've honored and I blessed instead of resenting. I've blessed. And there was a season in my life when I've declined the dream of my life here, that I would be inside the car and I wouldn't want to leave. And I always tell my students that the secret is jumping out of bed to go to work, like doing everything meaningfully and with love. And I was getting depressed, I would say, but God shifted that, and God told me, and I really felt the Spirit telling me that I could choose two things. But I would miss it when I leave. Enjoy while you're here. You will go, but enjoy it. Make the best out of it, because you miss living here, and I do. Like, of course, I miss my life there now. I know where I'm. But you're just like, I had a great life, and God told me you will miss it. So then I changed at that time, and then I began blessing. Instead of
so you
depressed,
prayed and you walked around,
fight
laid hands on the doors.
Your feelings, exactly. You have to fight against the feelings. Even when you don't feel it, it's not about feeling.
Yes.
Just break through that in your life.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And then so that after that season, and then coming back to the U of A with a position, that was probably one of the biggest escalations, would you say, of your career? Like going, because you had finished your you finished your PhD.
That gave me a lot of,
and that's just
and they gave me a lot of what I needed to succeed as well, right? It gave me protected time for research, some money that I could do the projects people didn't believe in. My big cancer project that I finished, that I've mentioned, that I started as an assistant professor, I didn't get funding for it because people didn't believe. I've got comments from expert, it's all anonymous, but from expert reviewers saying, once a person has cancer, nutrition does not matter.
Wow.
So
you had to fight that.
I had to fight everything. I had to fight. Let's just put it this way here. Nothing is easy in my life, but it's so it's devastating, because that's your field. That's what you're dedicating your life to.
Your peers or those above you are saying,
correct. This is the importance.
Opposite.
Again, that's why it's so important that the philanthropy work that could believe in things that others don't believe, because you don't have proof yet, or that's exactly why you need proof to show that it's going to work, right? And then I've invested this money on the things that on this research project that I really believe it was going to work. And now we have several publications. I'm traveling the world presenting.
Well, you're giving people hope, because if you got half the science, scientists and people out there saying, well, once you have cancer, nutrition doesn't matter. Once you have cancer, you might as well just roll over and die. Where's the hope in that?
Yeah, it's tough. And also, like, nutrition it fuels our body, right? And it's important for people too. it's very important for patients. We've talked to patients. We know that it's important for them. But that's the thing. Like I always say, it's so important for us to stay focused. And I know, Carrie, you asked me about other challenges. I've had a lot of challenges too. And but one fun testimony that I forgot to tell, and I would love to tell now, is I remember when I applied for a scholarship as a graduate student, and I was number 7. They had 5.
They had 5 scholarships?
And I was number 7.
Okay.
So didn't get it, honey. Bye. It was to fund an entire year of my program. And when you get scholarships, your salary goes up because then you get a top up from your supervisor.
Really?
Oh, okay.
You save money and then you get a top up. So then I remember I called the person who I don't know. I called the scholarship office and I said, what are my chances of getting it? Because if people get, for example, if this was a provincial scholarship, if people get a federal one, they decline one of them. You cannot hold 2. So then one becomes available. So there are chances for this happening. And the person said, well, the deadline of declining is tomorrow. No one declined. So I think it's impossible. Actually, I didn't call. I've emailed. So the person said, it's impossible. They use that word. When someone uses this word with me, it just fires up in me.
Did you say impossible?
Oh,
hallelujah.
It's mine. And I remember, putting my knee on the floor and say, God, I want your favor. I want that scholarship.
Now, especially.
I wanted 2 people had to decline, not only one, right? So then I didn't know that person, but I've replied, I believe in miracles. That's all I said. I believe in miracles.
You say that to people.
Yeah, I
Let
said
me
So is
ask you
that
this.
common? Sorry, is that common, like with your peers, that most of the people you work with, that are your peers, that they would have that same fortitude on the inside that says it doesn't matter if they say no, I'm going for it. Like, or are you different?
I don't think everyone says that. It's actually the opposite.
They just kind of go,
Most
okay, it
people
is
would
what
say,
it is.
yeah, I have some people that have like high spirits, but most people just
say it is what it is, and then there
yeah.
it is.
Wouldn't most scientists be quite left-leaning? Would most scientists not believe in God? Like,
Absolutely. I've actually had a colleague who told me I was not allowed to be a scientist and believe in God. Yeah,
Really?
I'll tell you that story.
A scientist told you that?
Let me just finish the
Okay.
scholarship quickly. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Sure.
And so anyways, then I said, I believe in miracles. The next day I wake up and there's an email. I guess it's worth to believe in miracles. You got this scholarship.
Wow.
2 people had to decline their scholarships.
Yeah. And the day before. So it was like that minute, that's last.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was wonderful. And again, another testimony. But yes, so I think that all of us, we have to have resilience to apply for grants. No one gets a grant usually the first time they apply. So everyone has to have resilience, and it's just how you deal with that. And
It's like sales and business.
exactly right.
It's hard because you expect God's with me. I'm going to get it the first time.
Yeah.
Everything's going to come easy.
It's not.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't. And I teach that to my students because they are new to this rejection, and because I don't want them to reflect that on who they are, right? It is part of the business too. So a lot of my colleagues, they go back, and I don't know their posture, but some people do give up, and but like the posture of going back, yes, it's common, but how you don't let that define you, that's a different thing, right? How you don't internalize that and make that a failure, a personal failure. It's more on a personal level. But
And Jesus, he would say, ask me for anything and I'll do it. But he would also say, in this world, you will have trouble.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
which is it? Am I going to get everything I want, or am I going to have trouble?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. It's all yes.
Yes and yes. What about this person that told you you're not allowed to be a scientist?
Yeah. So this is funny. So we were having an intense discussion, and I was very offended by the way this person would talk about God. But what God told me at that moment is like, you stay quiet and just love on this person. Yeah. So I would just be smiling when I wanted to get my shoes and throw it on this person's face. But I'm like, okay, Carla, you're Brazilian blood. It has to be under the cross. But so I would just be like quiet, right? Like, because, the Bible, if you interpret the Bible, if you get one verse about the war or whatever, like that's not how you interpret our Bible. And but God just said, don't. It's not I'm very rarely engage in arguments with people because I don't think that arguments usually change people's opinions, and my marriage as well. But what happens is I said, okay, stay quiet. And one day God gave me the opportunity to talk to this person, and this person, they couldn't get pregnant. And
this is the same person who
said
told you
I
can't
was
be
not
a
allowed.
scientist
Yeah.
and be a Christian.
And by the way, First Amendment says I can be a Christian and I can be a
Okay.
FYI, everybody.
First Amendment? Isn't that an American thing?
Yeah, is it an American thing? What is the?
I don't know.
The Charter of
The charter, yes.
Rights
and
freedoms.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. I'm a little bit.
So she says you can't be a scientist and be a Christian, and then later on she wants to get
It's
pregnant.
not a she necessarily.
Oh, it's he. Okay. This person
This person
wanted
wants
to
to
get
get
baby,
pregnant.
and they're having troubles.
Just like my age, I'm joking. But what happened is, I just felt to saying, this person was telling me that, and I said, oh, we have a medical diagnosis of infertility, and I just jumped it and said, I'm gonna pray. You're gonna get pregnant, but you're gonna give the glory to my God. Deal?
Really?
Wow. Boy, that was bold.
Deal?
Yeah. So then I
You
go home
added
and I'm
that?
like, I did it, and then
And did he say yes? I'll give glory to God.
okay, yeah. They said okay, and then I went home and I'm like, okay, what have I done? What have I done? God help me! You're gonna have to do it now. And I said, I'm gonna pray until God says, "Shut up" to me. So that's what
Wow.
I just said, like very loving heart. I said, show who you are. Just show your grace
come on.
and your mercy.
Yeah.
And I said, I need that. Like I need to show you who you are. And God did it. And they have more children than I have now.
Wow.
Yeah, God did it, and my friend came back and said, yeah, I guess it's worth to believe in your God, or it wasn't
Wow,
exactly these words, but
something,
I
Well,
believe in your
speaking
God
of
now.
children, that's how we met you.
Yeah, that's how we met you. Yeah.
I mean,
You tell the story now, Kara.
well, you had waited.
It was about a year, I think. I was looking back. Yeah.
Well, you've been married 15
Oh, yeah,
years. You wanted to wait because you were working on your career, and then you were trying to have a baby. You were trying,
And even coming to that decision was a big one for you, because
it was a big one, and
how
I
did
needed
that-
most people in your field, I imagine. I mean,
Oh yeah, I didn't
have to sacrifice
I did not
family
have
life.
someone at my level that had a child, so I didn't have role models, academic role models
Right.
that were operating, at the level that I was,
Yeah.
that had children.
so you
They
waited
laid
about
that
15 years, and then the Lord brought you to the place where you said, "Yes, this is what I
and
want."
God, I met a wonderful person. You should invite her for your podcast, Jolene Beagle, and she's a family therapist. And I've never been to a family therapist before, but it was one of the most amazing decisions of my life, because it took 1 hour of talking to her for her to align who I was,
Yeah.
and
And
why
that's-
was I limiting my God? Like,
Yeah.
why don't you?
Why
think
can't
God
you
is
do
gonna-
both?
Exactly.
And that's one of the inside pillars that I have on the inside of me, is that people say to me, well, how can you do so much? How can you handle all this? And I go, it's grace. It's grace.
Yeah.
It's grace. And this is a few years ago, but I was just talking to the Lord, and I'm like, oh God, this is just too much. And he said, Kara, I only want to increase the amount that you have to steward, and you're going to just need more grace.
I know.
Yeah, get
You
ready.
know, and so it's not about,
I'm not
okay, I
even
need
done
less
yet.
on my plate. I need more breaks. I need more holidays. No,
Yes.
I need more grace.
What-
And then the wisdom to balance it all. But it was like, stop wishing for less and ask for
Yeah.
more grace.
What is that verse that talks about running with horses in the Bible? I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, if you can't basically can't keep up with the footmen, how are
How
you
you
going to
gonna
run with the horses?
horses?
And it's like, what? We're running with
Yes.
horses next?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no.
and that's the importance
Exactly,
too. Even our Steve's last podcast with Katie Weidrich, but the importance of inviting people into your life that can help you navigate sometimes when you're stuck. You know, and
Yes.
so for you, even like you said, after an hour of talking with her, it was like, yes.
Was there one thing
Why
she
I don't want to
said
limit
that-
God, and I
She
can do
said,
this.
yeah, she had and I still she's still a person that's helps in my journey a lot. But she had like a questionnaire, and she asked one of my biggest gifts, and I think I wrote creativity. And one of the things she said is like, so if you have creativity, why don't you think God is going to help you be creative to make everything fit in?
Wow.
That was one of the things that I remember, right? And also aligning. And she asked me a question too about like, wait, like she will go deep into why. It's like, why do you have to have children? I'm like, why I have to have children? I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Also, like those questions, and it just bringing back to like really the reasoning why I was there. What was my mental blockage at that time? And it's like people who are filled with the Holy Spirit is just different, right? They would
Yes.
just say the word. Like they would, it's amazing. And she has that, and she has
They're
the
led
power
by
of
the
God in
Lord
her.
to ask the
she's
right
totally
questions
led
to
by
help
she's totally led
discover
by the
things.
Lord. Yeah. In everything still in my life. And you need someone to talk to that is not going to judge you.
So after
So
your
even
talk
though
with
you're
her-
so brilliant and smart,
Oh, my
you
goodness.
still needed help.
I still
to
need
navigate
help, and
this.
I think
that's a
every
lesson
woman
for all of us.
needs help,
And
we
men.
have to be
All of us.
men as well. Yes, especially men, because they don't talk about it, anything. But the humility too, right? That it builds in our hearts of knowing that you are not an almighty. Like you are weak, and sometimes you
Yeah.
need people to pray over you as well.
Yeah, I know. Like a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, Steve and I, we were kind of at an impasse, and we were struggling with some things, and we had a session. I talked with Katie, Steve talked with Katie, and she was able, through the help of the Holy Spirit, for us to navigate through something that we were really locked up in.
Yeah, exactly. And you could do that. You could be locked up.
And
you're
then
not
on the
knowing.
other side of it was such freedom and just another level of relationship.
Exactly.
And in our business,
Katie's a
ministry.
big gift to us because whenever we get in a fight and Kira can't win, she goes to Katie and
is
says, "Go
not
fix my
true.
husband."
That is
Okay,
not
there's
true.
two women here, so you are at a loss. I'm gonna take care of side.
So let's fast forward a bit. You have this meeting. You decide I'm having a baby. You try for about a year, but during that year, you have a miscarriage.
Yes, I
and
had a
so when we
miscarriage.
met you, you were really in a low place.
Yes.
You were pretty broken. I remember we were preaching at a church. What was it called?
It was Connect Church.
Connect
Pastor
Church.
Pedro Pires.
Oh yeah. So I'm preaching in that church.
And you had waited 15 years, and then you had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So just
and I had just
feelings
read
you were
about it
feeling.
was a book about abortion in Canada, and that book crashed me, and just understanding the what was going on in the country. And I've had an experience before working with Faitine Grzeski and being in her team when we went to the parliament talk about abortion and
Faitine's a friend of mine.
suicide. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, she was amazing. Another part of my journey in Canada. I've learned so much from her. And I literally went with the young adults to the parliament and spent a week there when I first moved back to Canada. But that all of those, like, what was happening in the abortion realm and the legacy of that and knowing that how much I wanted a child, that just touched me in a deep level.
So
but
then,
that's when I met you guys. Yeah.
You finally made the decision you wanted to have children.
Yeah.
You had a miscarriage, and then did you have to fight feelings and thoughts that I
Fear.
waited too long and fear?
Yeah, my husband actually, when the first miscarriage we've had, he woke up in the middle of the night with a dream, and God told him there's going to be a storm coming. He didn't understand that we're going to lose the baby, but he thought something was going to be, coming up. So it was almost like a warning that was going to happen. And I was very sad, but I never thought I wasn't going to have a child. But I knew I almost knew that I needed some sort, like I needed prayer. I needed, there are things in the spiritual realm, because much deeper conversation, but that sometimes need agreement, right?
Exactly.
Or they need
that's a huge
something.
principle.
They need something, and then another person to get.
And that's when we met you. Steve was speaking
Yeah,
at
Pastor
your
Pedro, yeah,
church
Connect
there.
Church.
And we invited people up for prayer if they needed healing. And
Well, I think we were just on our way out.
You were on the way out already, yeah.
Yeah, we were leaving the service. And
she came up to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you came up to me, and as we were leaving, we were saying bye. And I think then I can't even remember the exact conversation because it was, 7 years ago.
I think I just asked you to pray for me.
Yes.
See, she said, how many kids you have? I'm like, this woman is blessed. She has the gift.
And then we had talked that you had wanted to have a baby but couldn't, or you were struggling.
Yeah.
You didn't.
I think I told you I had an abortion. Oh, sorry,
Sorry,
miscarriage.
miscarriage.
In
Okay.
Brazil,
Oops.
abortion is miscarriage.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Steve, come on. I just had faith. I just said, Steve, come on. I grabbed Steve and
we've
prayed
seen
with
so
you.
many people by that time. We've seen so many people we prayed for who couldn't get pregnant. get pregnant.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd always get like a picture of an ultrasound,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, a few months later or whatever. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, I have a section on my wall of all these ultrasounds and babies that were never supposed to be born. And so when you told Kara, oh, I want a baby, Kara's like, oh, get over here, Steve.
Yeah.
This is an
We're
easy
gonna
one.
agree and pray, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember we prayed for you, and you know it's neat. This was a fun one that I used this. 7 weeks later,
Yeah.
you sent me an email,
Yeah.
and I have this in
my
I have this
gosh!
in my Bible. This has been there for 20 years.
Oh my
Now,
goodness!
I've got
What is it?
probably dozens
Yeah,
of these.
Is it an
ultrasound
ultrasound?
pictures.
Oh my
But this is the
goodness.
picture of the
Oh my
ultrasound you
gosh.
sent me.
I'm gonna cry.
And it's been in my Bible for 20 years.
No,
7
7 years.
Or sorry, 7 years.
Yeah.
But I've had it in there for 7 years
Oh,
because
wow.
it's been and the reason I keep it there is because it's a faith builder.
Yeah.
Because you sent me this 7 weeks later, and it says here, "Hello, Uncle Steve and Auntie Kara. I'm 7 weeks old, and I have a normal heartbeat.
Oh.
Praise the Lord. Thank you for praying for us, Carla and Leandro." And underneath that, you said, "By the way, based on my calculations,
Yeah.
I got pregnant the week you prayed for me."
Yeah.
And I figured, well, she's a scientist, so her calculations
Yeah,
are probably pretty good.
They're
Well, I've
expert
kept
at
that in my Bible
Amen.
for
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these years.
Yeah,
And
7
whenever
years, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
praying for someone who
Wow.
wants a baby, I'll always pull this out and say, and I'll tell them the
Yes,
story, the
yeah.
slow version, and
Yeah,
I watch their
yeah.
faith grow.
Wow.
Testimonies
Amen.
are the most powerful
Amen,
tool
amen, amen.
I find for
Yeah,
healing. Is you
absolutely.
tell one or two good
Absolutely.
testimonies right before you pray
Yeah.
for someone, their faith just pops.
And sometimes God allows us to go through those things so that we have the story to tell. I remember one day I gave a talk. There was approximately 1,000 people listening to me, my scientific presentation. And then someone asked to have coffee with me after that. And this person, we were talking about science, and then this person eventually told me about miscarriages, and it became a conversation about my story and the faith I have in God and what God can do. And so it's like, you know, maybe God took me to that country just so that I could talk to that person after. It wasn't about the 1,000. It was about the one person that needed my story, but it's because of my tears. I always say, God, you can, you know, I can drop tears of sorrow and sadness, but it will bear fruit in your kingdom.
Yeah.
Every tear will bear fruit in your kingdom. And I always pray for that. I said, you know, I can suffer. You may allow this to happen, or I may be going through that, but let that be.
Yeah.
Let that be used in your kingdom to bless someone.
He works all things together for good for those who love him.
So Hannah's 7 years old now.
She's
How's she
7.
doing?
She
I've never met her yet.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
right?
going to meet her.
She is absolutely gorgeous, and you know her teacher says that she leaves the classroom every day and said, "Thank you for teaching me." She
Does
has
she?
a heart of honor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she has a heart, and her name means grace and favor, and that's why
Grace and favor.
Yeah.
and she has that heart of honor. Amazing. Like I know God is going to use her in worship as well. She comes up with her own lyrics. One day there was another song playing, I don't know where, but she said, "Mommy, it has to be Christian music." I'm like, "That's right. Let's change this song to Christian music." I think
Yeah.
we were like in the
She
car.
loves
Yeah.
worship.
She loves worship and she loves the Lord too. And yeah, she's a blessing in our lives. She's our joy, our gift. And I tell her that every day. She looks nothing like me. She's looking in the mirror with me one day. She's like, "Mommy, we look nothing alike." She's like blonde and blue eyes. Like, I look like I kidnapped that girl.
She's blonde and blue eyes?
Yeah. I'm like,
Really?
oh, yeah, it's a story. Every time we cross the border, people take us to the room, like get our passports. I'm like, oh, I look
funny.
like I kidnapped the girl, the Latina woman that kidnapped the
Really?
blonde.
Oh my
Yeah, and then,
goodness,
but I
that's
said,
funny.
well, thank God she was born a C-section, and I'm like, "Mommy has a cut to show that you did come from my belly."
She says that?
I tell her, but yeah, because she's like, "Mommy, you look no." She said, "I look like I'm adopted." Oh my
goodness.
She joked that, yeah, she knows, but it was such a. Yeah, I looked at her, I'm like, "Well, here's the cut. You did come from mommy's belly."
Wow.
But yeah, it's. I joke that it's genetic mutation.
Yeah.
She takes after her great grandparents.
Really? So there was blonde in the past.
I guess, yes,
guess,
yeah,
yeah.
certainly blue eyes and blondness. Yeah,
She didn't get your accent?
She did, can you imagine? She corrects us all the time. I'm learning English with her now.
Well, I tell the story of Hannah. I have told that story, and I got the picture that you've sent of me over the years. You've sent a couple of pictures. I put that on my wall. That's a faith builder, and I tell that to people all the time.
I'm trying to seek the Lord about this ministry of healing. Like, how do we operate on that? How can I get more of that?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you've been praying. There is something that we've been praying for in my family and for healing. And I said, God, I want to take advantage of the. But when is it? What is the breakthrough that needs to happen?
Yeah, I don't think there's a formula. I think we really do need to hear God. Like Jesus, one time he'd spit in someone's, spit and make some mud and put it in someone's eyes. Another time he'd do it differently. Well, why did he do it this way this time and this way this time? How come? We have to learn to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
And move with him.
So just to go along that even further there, in your role as doctor, as scientist, as professor, as leading a business unit of the lab, do you see yourself as in ministry, or how does that look for you?
I think that the Lord really have different spheres of influence in society, and he has put me in this one, right? I've never dreamed of having what I have today. I thought I was going to have a small lab through 2-3 people.
Right.
I didn't have the ambition to get where I am. And now I see that, especially during my presentations and when I travel, everyone I meet, like, I can, tell them a little bit about my story. And it's not about, of course, we have to be respectful and everything, but it's about loving God. What's the biggest commandment, right? Like, love your Lord and then love others like you love yourself.
Yeah.
So I am a living, like, I need to be light wherever I go. So yes, it's my ministry. It's a big ministry that I have because, first of all, I have to be able to withstand it's very tough. It's a lot of, sometimes I'm like, why didn't I choose to just be home with my little girl and enjoy, being a mom, and why? But the Lord gives me the favor and the grace, and he'll never give you more than you can handle. And, the Bible verse that Hannah's memorizing this month is, we will soar with wings like eagles, right?
Yeah.
We will
Days that wait
run
upon the Lord.
and not go weary. She's like, I said, weary. Like, Mommy, it's weary. We will walk and not go faint. And yes, that's my ministry. And I have to be light. And even being light meaning, for example, I advocate a lot for students' mental health. I don't need to talk about Jesus.
Right.
Jesus is in me. And when I advocate for mental health, I am blessing students. I have undergrad students who said they've never had someone change their lives or believe in them, or I have amazing stories, and I never, go say, oh, you have to be a Christian. No, the opposite. I am the love, I reflect God in my life.
Yeah.
It is through my loving of others. It is through my honoring authority, preaching that a house divided against itself will not prosper. That's very important as well. Division, we'll never prosper if we're divided against ourselves. And I love my leaders. I love my president. I love my provost. I love my vice president of research, and I bless them and I speak great words about them behind their backs too. Yeah. Like, I honor my leadership.
Right.
And I think that this
lesson.
shows who I am, even in the midst of troubles. Like, even when I'm not happy, I teach my team. I'm like, first of all, how can we solve this? It's not about the problem. What is the solution? Let's find the solution. And yes, I have cried a lot in my office. Yeah. Recently, I was dealing through a lot, and I was on the floor. I'm like, God, take it away from me. I don't need this. I don't care about what other people are going to think of me. But God would just open doors of favor and grace, right? Yeah. But it's like who we are in your place, in your sphere of influence. Yeah. And that's our ministry, is because people are so thirsty for God.
And I can't even express the excitement I feel on the inside, to see your life and to see the kingdom of God manifest in the University of Alberta, in science, in cancer research, like it, to see grace and favor, his kingdom manifest. It gives, I think, hope and vision to countless people who are saying, like, what do I do, with my life? And they're looking maybe in the sphere of church and how can I minister there? But to realize
a smile
that
can change people's life.
But our lives are meant to have impact.
Yes,
whether
absolutely.
it's in science or in business
Or in your
or in
household.
education or in
Yeah.
arts and
Yeah.
entertainment. I love to
Yes.
see God's grace
Yes.
and favor just
Amen.
absolutely manifest
Amen.
in your life and rise you to the top
Yeah.
in your field. And I know God, he gives you
Yeah,
solutions.
yeah,
He gives
yeah.
you ideas,
Yeah,
and I just love it.
Yeah.
And I think it's an inspiration.
And because it's the Lord, and because it's grace and favor, and I hear you say that again and again, it's grace and favor. It's grace and favor.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
when I talked to you on the phone the other day, and
I don't want to take the
I
credit.
said, Carla, I said, you're like really, really important. Oh my gosh, I just Googled you. And you're like, Steve, it's all grace and favor.
Yeah.
Because you've seen the favor of God on your life, because your faith has caused you, given you this grace to be able to tap into that kingdom realm and bring that favor, bring that grace, you give him glory. Like you don't, like some people who are in Forbes, have a pretty fat head.
Yeah.
Some people
But
who are in, all these
yeah.
magazines and stuff.
I'm the improbable. I'm the international student who could, still doesn't speak English 100%. And I am the improbable. I am the person that, no one would think that. No one would bet on, me, like getting these awards. And I also, one thing that I've learned is I define success. The success that I define, and I tell that to my students, are not defined by normal metrics. Because normal metrics, then I wouldn't have, when I look back, all of these big awards that I have now, it's because I stepped outside the norm. And I did things that people told me not to, in terms of, that's not what I should focus on as a scientist. But I still did it. I still wanted to do it because that brought me happiness too, joy in my work. And I felt like I was giving back, right? And all of those things, then now today, 10 years later, is what are being recognized. So I
if
wasn't
you had
ready.
done what everyone told you
Yes,
to do,
absolutely.
you wouldn't have won.
No.
No.
Yeah, and I think that's the hallmark too of,
Yeah.
of those that are leaders and those in business is there's moments when you follow that the Holy Spirit, that feeling on the inside, and you say I'm going this way, even though
exactly.
everyone else around me thinks I'm crazy. And I know when Steve has bought different equipment, and he said, no, this is what we're doing, we're buying it. I'm like, okay, I'll just trust you, and I mean. Years ago when our industry changed and you bought all these combo Excels that you felt we needed to go this direction.
Yeah.
And we spent like $600,000 to build these big units. And then as soon as I started building them, the recession hit.
Oh, wow.
And
It
it
was
was
like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I'm such a moron, that here we are now we're into this recession. And it was scary for a little while. But during that recession, there were a few jobs here and there. And because I had this amazing new product that worked better than anything else, we were the ones who got those few jobs. Wow. And as we came out of that recession, we were leaders in our in our sphere.
Yeah, it positioned us for future growth.
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you, people that in some ways were smarter than you and had more sense. You had to follow your spirit that said, go this direction.
Exactly. And the principle of honor is very important as well. So for example, at the end of the year, I tell my team, we all prepare like little treats for the custodian staff, HR, finances, all people who are behind the scenes, but are blessing my research program and my lab to thrive.
Wow.
So we honor them. And even when how you treat people, all of those small things are testimony, right? And then it's what makes a difference in someone's life. And also when you are seeking God, if you are in leadership, you're going to be attacked a lot.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to have your secret place with God and to get wisdom as well, but also to when people need a word of wisdom or knowledge, you'll be able to operate in the gifts of the Spirit as well. And that's very important. It has been wonderful, and it's something that I love to tap into. And sometimes I would just say, you can go buy that ticket. It's going to be very discounted, you'll see. So things like that, and then like, just like what you said, it happened. So just like small things, but can build people's faith as well.
Yeah.
But
No,
I know my friends.
I'm always telling, well, I grew up driving in the car with my mom to school. And I think pretty much every morning she says, what does Ephesians 6 say, Kara and Tim? And we'd have to recite that scripture. And that was drilled into us pretty much every day growing up on the way.
Yes.
Children, honor your father and mother.
Oh, wow.
And that it may go well with you.
Yeah.
And you may live a long life, and it's not just our natural mother and father, but those in authority. And so it's now a message that I'm constantly drilling into my kids about honor. And I think you are living that out, where you have honored even in really difficult situations, in your business lab, in your everywhere you go.
Your marriage.
Your marriage is to honor. And the Lord promises. There's not a lot. There's promises in the Bible, and this is one of them, that it will go, your life will go well with you. And I think in our businesses, in our careers, that is such an important lesson, is to honor. And it doesn't mean we agree. It doesn't mean we align with them. It doesn't mean we can't have an opinion. And I tell my kids, you can disagree and you can have an opinion, but you can't step into dishonor.
Yeah.
And I say, this isn't mommy telling you what to do. This isn't me. This is the Lord. This is a promise. I said, do you want a good life? Do you want your life to go well with you? Well, then honor. And so I know in our business, it's something we're, with our staff, and whether they appreciate it or not, it's something that it's a value that we uphold.
Yes.
Is let's honor one another.
Yes.
We might screw up. We might crash a truck. They might forget something, but we speak well of one another.
So the easiest way to get fired at our company is to be dishonoring.
Yeah.
Just to treat people poorly, speak lowly
gossip.
of someone else.
It has
just
to be.
Attitude of, I'm better than you. We just get rid of them. Because we used to have a horrible, I remember how many years ago it was, probably 14, 15 years ago, but we had such a horrible culture in our community because we just let everything go. We let people slander, let people put each other down, let people talk.
Negativity.
I hated going to work. I just hated
negativity
being there.
is not allowed. Like I hate it. Yeah.
And so we just made up our minds, you know what? We're just going to fire everyone who's dishonoring and negative as quickly as we can.
Well, we give them a chance to change first,
exactly.
But
it happens real quick. I've let someone recently know. I said, listen, just so you know what? That was negative and critical, and I'll probably give you about 4 warnings. Okay.
And if you have an issue, come to us. We'll find a solution.
Exactly.
But if you just go over
and then it brings destruction, it brings the division, right? No. The division that won't let the house prosper. That's the other important thing. I hate competition. I'm not a competitive person at all. And I tell that to my students. Sometimes they're applying for a scholarship, the same scholarships, they will exchange their own applications to help each other. And I think that, that attracts honor, that attracts respect, and a family also oriented mind, which is so important. And there's a lot. I think that there's so much that you can be and do as a Christian without being a minister, having a pastoral gift. There are other gifts, and they were put on earth. Jesus has given it to us so that we would bless the body and bless others and show his light. We are light. We have to displace darkness. Every time I've been through horrible situations, I always kept thinking light will prevail. And it's also the desire, when I always say that to people, and it's genuine. What I'm doing here is genuine. What I'm doing, we care. We really care. I don't need to do this because I want to be famous Carla Prado. Actually, the opposite. Right. I want to do this to honor, 10 years from now, no one is going to remember it. They will remember the research, the legacy that we left, for example. They will remember the lives that I touched or the people that I've prayed for that asked me to pray, right? For example, I'm a prayer, I was a prayer leader at my church, and so I can operate on my gifts as well in my sphere of my church, not having to be necessarily a pastor, right? So the Lord can use me in different ways as well. And those things are wonderful. And
but I think as I look at your life, it's a good reminder that, we allow the Lord to work on the inside of us, but you also, in the practical sense, developed yourself and you went to school and you continue to develop,
Yes.
you know, and I think that's an important key as we look at, you know, in the business realm or in the marketplace, is as we represent the Lord in whatever field, part of that, it requires us to develop, to grow our skills,
lot
and
of young
not just
people
to
don't
just
do that
be like,
anymore.
okay, well, God's going to do it. God's going to open doors. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to sit here and wait.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and when I was in high school, I remember the prevailing theme in my church was the young people, especially girls in the charismatic church, would just be like, well, I don't want to go to university because, well, what happens if I meet somebody and I want to get married, or we want to go in ministry? It was just like, there was never the understanding.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say never, but there was a limited understanding of the role of not just the spirit development in our prayer life and our faith, but also in the natural to develop ourselves, to gather skills and knowledge. And as I look at your life, I can see that that's not something you were afraid of. You weren't like, well, you kept pursuing further fellowships and
working on you.
you know, and developing so that God could favor and bless a vessel who in her field was highly skilled and trained, you know? And so I think even in the business realm, as we want to be carriers of the kingdom and we want to walk with the Lord and hear him, we can't also negate development.
Absolutely.
In the practical sense.
Absolutely. And I also, one of the things is like I work very hard. I do go above and beyond. If you expect me to do A for you, I'll do A and B for you, because of excellence. And I think the Lord is also calling us for excellence now,
Excellence.
right?
I love
we have a
that.
culture, especially after COVID, of just getting by. And, you know, we've been seeing that. And I teach that to my students. Let's be excellent in what we do. It doesn't mean don't burn yourself, the opposite actually, but do it with excellence, everything.
Yeah, it's not a striving and
How
to
do you
perform.
how do you work that hard and still make time for your family?
Yeah, so I have a few things that I sacrifice, but I told you I was working on, you know, this year is really, God is calling me into alignment with a few things in my life in terms of my personal care, but I am a mom. After I will work until 4 p.m. and then I'm a mom. Then I will leave work and I'm going to cook dinner
4
for my
p.m.
family. Yes, and then it's Hannah. She doesn't see me working at home, even though I have, you know.
Things on
You
your
can
mind?
feel it.
Things are, if you're a leader, if you are a business owner, things are always in our mind, right?
It never ends.
It never ends.
It's always
but
there.
God gives you the grace, again, to run with the horses. But when she goes to bed, I go back to work. And that's the unhealthy part, because, you know, sometimes I will neglect to sleep a little bit or a lot. But this year, I'm really trying to work on that. But that's what I do. Like, my family never gets neglected. I do the grocery shopping. I cook. I serve their plates. I clean their plates. I manage my household. You know, my husband takes care of the finances and everything outside the house or fixing inside the house, like snow and backyard. But everything else, it's me. And unless if I'm traveling, of course, he'll do it, all of that. But I take care of my family. And I don't think someone could ever say
That's
that I've
a value
neglected
to
my
you.
family. It's certainly a value. It's my language of love, is serving them and making sure they are well fed. And
So when she goes to bed, then you work some more.
then I work some more. My
And
secret,
Leandro
though,
sits next to you.
well, we joke that, you know, like, especially before, like, he's almost working every evening. I look at him, love you too.
So you work side by side. So you're together, working together.
We're working together.
That's awesome.
But so this is. But one of my secrets is when I go to bed with her, and I do spoil her. We still sleep with her a little bit, and then I nap. So I nap with her, so then I can.
So you can
wake
work
up and
longer.
work longer.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I'm working on getting, you know, I don't say that this is the example, but I am operating in a much more productive, that I don't need to be as productive as we are now. So I need to learn how to say no. Like Paul says, I keep my eyes, like I continue to meet the goal of balancing things better in my life, of course. But I'm a mom, and that's the most important thing. That's my most important job.
Yes.
Well, this has been really great interviewing you. You know what? One of my desires, and you know, the why behind this podcast, you know, and they're longer. You know, these are not 45-minute sessions; they're, you know, a couple hours. But what I really want is, to be able to interview extraordinarily high-achieving people who are really accomplishing things with God's help.
Yeah. Huge
and
impact.
let people be kind of the fly on the wall in their lives. Because sometimes I don't think people even know what they're doing right all the time. So if I said, well, how do you become a successful, world-renowned scientist? You might say, well, do this, do that. But when people listen to you talk for almost 2 hours, they hear a lot of things, and some of the takeaways I get from you is, number one, you do work hard, but you're also a person of prayer. And you believe that if you actually talk to this invisible God, he'll hear you and he'll help you. And you're also a person who's really ridiculously committed to not speaking negative things. And so you get the whole James thing about the power of your mouth and the power of your tongue. I hear you talking about your declaration. I hear you talking about prophesying with your words. Well, you're going to get what you say. And so you're very careful about what you say. I see a woman who's passionate about being in agreement with her husband. That's not something that everybody cares about, is coming into agreement with their spouse. And that matters to you. And yet, your little baby girl means the whole world to you. And you'll shut everything off for her as well. And so you do a lot of things well. And it is such an honor. It is such an honor that you could just come and share your story with us. And I know many people are going to hear this and be inspired to start talking differently. To start spending time with the Lord. To start believing for impossible things.
And to understanding the role of protein
nutrition
and
levels.
muscle
Come on.
in disease prevention and in curing disease. So I thank you, because I didn't even realize that, that what I eat, obviously, we have thoughts about sugar and different things, but understanding that protein, how vital it is
Muscle matters.
for muscle and then disease prevention and fighting. So thank you for that.
And I want to encourage everyone to start, sometimes we create this huge, what does it mean to seek the Lord? How do I start? People don't know it, but it's just finding that time that is a quiet time with the Lord, whether it's inside your closet or whatever it is. It's your time with the Lord, and there's no secret. It's just, think of, you have your best friend in front of you, and he knows the deepest secrets of your heart. He knows what you need. He knows everything. So you don't need to even say anything, memorize anything. You can put a worship music on. So have a little box with your Bible and maybe even some devotionals that you can get started. Don't feel awkward, just press in. He's there. He has his ears inclined to hear you. So I want to encourage everyone to just seek that secret place. Even if it's you're going to get addicted to it, I'll tell you. But it's just, that's where you're going to get your
what you need, grace and favor.
Exactly. And grace and favor for everything. And then all these accomplishments and the awards become so small after you have that, right? Because then the rejections are easier too, because you'll be like, whatever, it's not meant to be. God is going to give me something
and he
else.
works all things together for good.
Amen.
And so every rejection, everything that does, he works it for good.
Absolutely.
So,
yes. Well, thank you for having me.
Carla Prado, scientist.
Dr. Carla,
Professor Prado, not Prada.
I don't know.
Thanks for joining us. This was great.
My friends. Yeah, thank you.
We'll have you back.
Me. Yes. I want more. These are old stories. I want my new story.
Come on, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.